What is up, guys? Hey, welcome to the Tank Online. We're glad you guys are here this morning with us. If it's your first time, we just want to say we're glad you're here. Basically, what to expect from this time is I'm about to share this pre-recorded video of me sharing a story of Jesus in the Bible. And then after that, we're going to have just a couple questions to talk about it on this chat bar. And we just see this as a chance to really connect with each other in this time, support each other, encourage each other. And we believe that Jesus offers us real hope right now. And so that's why we do stuff like this. So that's what we're gonna do. If you are new, feel free to follow us on Instagram. That's the best way to stay up to date. And if this is your first time joining us, we've been in a series these past couple Sundays that we've been calling the You Effect. And we've been talking about influence, like what kind of influence do you make on other people, and what kind of influence do other people make on you? And so today we're gonna be talking about this idea of influence, but what happens when you lose influence? And when I say that, it really, to me, it brings to mind a lot of like celebrities that have lost influence over the years based on mistakes they've made. So before we go on, I just want to give you guys a second in the chat. Go in the chat and name some names of famous people that you know have lost influence before because of mistakes they've made. Go ahead. Awesome. Thank you guys for your responses. If you're just now joining us, feel free to drop your name and say hello in the chat. Just let us know you're here. Before we go on, I want to talk about my 8th grade science class, and I promise it will make sense eventually why I'm bringing that up. My 8th grade science class, I went to Kopchak Middle School. Go Coyotes. Yo, if you're a Coyote right now, put your name in the chat. Let's get it. My 8th grade science teacher, his name was Mr. Hollett. I think he's still there, so also sound off in the chat if you had Mr. Hollett. But Mr. Hollett, for me, he made science like come alive. I just remember doing like all these crazy experiments that I was like, oh my gosh, science is cool. Like it's exciting. You have to like blow stuff up and do all these like tests and experiments. I just really loved how Mr. Hollett made us think about our experiments. But for some reason, I remember a lot of times in science, we would talk about this idea of cause and effect in physics, right? And I think of like a pendulum. I wish I had one with me, but you know, if you could picture those balls hanging by a string and you pull one, you go, and it whacks the other ones, and then the ball on the other side comes off, and then they start doing this back and forth, right? And so the cause is, you know, I'm gonna pull this ball back and drop it, and the effect is equal force on the other side, and so on, right? I should be a scientist. I should be an 8th grade science teacher. Unrelated note. I have like these like lights hanging from the ceiling in my house. There's 3 lights, and they kind of look like a pendulum. And I've always been tempted to like pull one and just go, you know, they're glass, so that'd be a bad idea. But it's like a pendulum. It's kind of cool. Anyways, I talk about cause and effect because I think it's true in life that we're free to choose our actions. We're free to choose the cause in our life. But we're not free to choose the consequences or the effect. And so there's always this interaction with a cause and effect in our lives. And so, for example, a cause for you might be that your mom is in a super great mood one day. And so that's the day you ask her to drive you and your friends to the concert on Friday night. So there's the cause. Your mom's in a good mood. The effect is, oh, you want to take advantage of that. Or maybe a cause, a teacher of yours just sprung this last minute project on a Friday, and so now your whole weekend, as an effect, is going to be spent working on that project till Monday. Or maybe the cause is you feel like you just look like a mess someday in the normal time when you'd be going to school, And maybe you don't feel confident enough talking to people, or maybe talking to a crush at school, whatever it may be. Cause and effect. Maybe you feel like you played terrible in a game one weekend, and the effect for you is you know that the next day at practice, your coach will push you hard because of that loss. So you guys get the idea. And I think here's what's funny for me, and I'm guessing it's true for you too. When I experience something that the effect is great, I'm the first to say, yes, the cause is me. Like, I'm the great thing that caused the effect. Okay, I don't say that out loud, but I do kind of like hype myself up sometimes. But on the flip side, I run into effects all the time that are bad because of my actions. And I'm kind of 0% likely to say, that's me. I'm the one that caused that bad thing. In fact, for me, like, it's always when I lose things. When I lose my keys, my phone, my wallet, it's never my fault. Like, I'm always getting mad at my family members as if they, are always taking my stuff. But I think in life, sometimes we all mess up, right? Like, we all slip up. We all make mistakes. And sometimes it's hard to own it as something that we may have contributed to. And we drift away from what we know we're supposed to do. And the effect, we lose influence. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Maybe the cause and effect for you happens in a big way. And so maybe there's a big mistake you made, and now it becomes kind of like the talk of all the gossip at school, or on the team, or even in small group. Or maybe it involved making a mistake at a party, or an inappropriate picture that went public, a run-in with the police, or just some kind of mistake you made that everyone now knows about. I think we all know that feeling to a degree. Whatever we did was the cause, and the effect usually is people that might look at us and take a step back. People that listen to us and kind of turn down the volume. Adults who once respected us give us that disappointed look, that look from a parent like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. You're like, oh, it kills me. But even the people that are normally quick to hang out with us, maybe sometimes they're suddenly busy because of mistakes we've made. Sometimes though, like, the cause and effect thing happens in small ways. Maybe it's not a huge decision for you. Maybe it's just a series of small decisions, small changes in a friend group, one-time things that turn into all the time things until suddenly you're different people and you're just seen differently. I think example in my life is when I was in high school, and this isn't something I'm proud of, so I'm not saying this to laugh, but I was a crazy driver when I was in high school. I was the kind of guy that was easily kind of egged on to do crazy, reckless things in my car. And my friends and I at the time were just kind of having fun. But do you know what happened? Some people started to choose to not ride with me anymore. Why? Because they lost trust in me. They didn't want to be involved in the reckless, dangerous things I was doing. Like, I wouldn't blame them. And so I made a bunch of dumb, dangerous decisions and lost all this trust and this influence with my friends. So the cause, I became a really dangerous driver. Effect, a lot of my friends didn't trust me anymore. And I think I say that because how we treat people and the decisions we make can increase or decrease the effect we have on the lives of others. Over time, if the interactions we have with people are negative, people could stop trusting us or stop wanting us to be around. And as a result, we lose our positive effect slowly over time. Before we even realize it, our relationships have changed, and we can end up feeling like we can't ever get back what was lost with people. And here's the thing, guys, like, losing influence happens to all of us. Because none of us are perfect, we all make decisions that create distance between us and the people around us. And when that happens, nearly all of us tell ourselves the same thing. That's it, story's over. We mess up, do something stupid, people find out, and we decide not to go to church anymore. Or we kind of stay quiet in small group now. Or we ghost our friend group. That feeling kind of like of shame or embarrassment of something we did. And more often than not, 1 week of doing that turns into 2 weeks into 2 months. And before long, we start telling ourselves, man, I used to be a church person, a God person, a small group person, but that's just not really me anymore. I'm not gonna have influence or be a person who changes someone's life because of Jesus. Maybe I once was a person with a positive you effect on people around me, but that's just not the case anymore. And if that's you, you are not the first person to feel that way. Because actually the Bible is full of people who had a positive influence and lost it. And they were sure that their story was over because of it. This week, we're gonna look at a woman whose influence nearly hit rock bottom. And in her culture, women already had less influence than men. They were seen as property, and people believed that they had very little value. And in this case, this woman had made some pretty bad decisions that led her to lose the little influence she had. Her encounter with Jesus that we're about to read was recorded by Luke, this doctor and researcher who spent time with people who actually knew Jesus and wrote down their stories. And so we're going to read this story that actually starts with a dinner invitation. This comes from Luke chapter 7, verse 36. It says, "When one of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him, he went to the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table." Okay, just for context, Pharisees were basically kind of like these Jewish leaders who were dedicated to following Jewish religious law. And because of that, they were kind of really cocky and confident that they were having the right effect, the positive effect on people. They were so confident and cocky, though, that they looked down on people who seemed to have less of an influence. And so with that in mind, let's look at what happens next. In verse 37, it says, "A woman in that town who lived a sinful life learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house. So she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. As she stood behind him at his feet weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears. Then she wiped them with her hair, kissed them, and poured perfume on them." Okay, the scene might seem a little weird, but foot washing was actually normal in that time. I mean, imagine spending all day walking in the dirt road on sandals. Everyone's feet would be so nasty. So it wasn't unusual to have your feet washed when you would come into someone's house. What was different about the situation was that this woman wasn't using water, but an expensive jar of perfume. Think Gucci, Versace, all those brands you hear in rap songs, right? Like, that's the kind of perfume she was using to wash Jesus' feet. And so this was more than just having clean feet. It was almost like an act of worship to Jesus. And the Pharisees, they had some thoughts about this. It says in verse 39, "When the Pharisee who invited him saw this, the woman doing this to Jesus, he said to himself, 'If this man were a prophet, he would know who is touching him and what kind of woman she is, and that she is a sinner.'" See, the thing is, the Pharisee here had Jesus all wrong. He thought Jesus would back away from being touched by a sinful woman, when in reality, this is actually the kind of people Jesus was drawn to, and the kind of people that were drawn to Jesus, for that matter. Jesus preferred it that way. People with no influence were drawn to Jesus. People who were sinners were drawn to Jesus. People who had negatively impacted others were drawn to Jesus. The kind of people who hit rock bottom, those were the people that wanted to be with Jesus. And this woman here we read about knew she had a bad rep and no influence or respect in this friend group of people. And that drove her straight to Jesus' feet. So her appreciation for Jesus was fueled by her own inadequacy. She didn't hide from Jesus because she didn't measure up. Instead, she actually got closer to him and worshiped him. Then Jesus tells a story and goes on. It says in verse 41, it says, "Then he turned towards the woman and said to Simon, 'Do you see this woman? I came into your house. You did not give me any water for my feet, but she wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You did not give me a kiss, but this woman from the time I entered has not stopped kissing my feet. You did not put oil on my head, but she has poured perfume on my feet. Therefore, I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, as her great love has shown. But whoever has been forgiven little, loves little.' Then Jesus said to her, 'Your sins are forgiven.'" Simon looked at this woman and probably saw her as nothing, right? But when Jesus looked at her, he saw something completely different. He saw potential and purpose and a positive effect for her future. You see, up to this point, the cause and effect of this woman's life looked like this. The cause, she was a sinner. The effect, people looked down on her and thought negatively about her. But see, this wasn't the cause and effect that Jesus saw with this woman. With Jesus, the cause was Jesus loved her. The effect was Jesus forgave her and gave her a new start at life. No matter what you've done, or how bad of a person you think you are, or how many people see you only because of what you've done, you are loved by Jesus. Like, I just can't say that enough. And you are free to love Jesus back. You don't need to have to get it together. You don't have to make up for anything or try to be good on your own to be loved by Jesus. In fact, what's incredible about this encounter with Jesus and the woman is that afterward, she had more influence than she could even imagine. I mean, to be clear, her story has now been used as an example of faith for thousands and thousands of years. Like her you effect may have once been almost gone at rock bottom, but it actually became bigger than she ever imagined. Because of her decision to just take one step towards Jesus, her story was redeemed through Jesus. Her lost influence, lost reputation, and lost standing weren't lost forever. Think about it this way. Because of Jesus, we can change the effect we have on others. For me, another story in my life, it wasn't until 6 years ago that I was really aware of the kind of racism that is inside the systems of our country. It wasn't until 6 years ago when I actually began to see how real white privilege is in this country. It wasn't until 6 years ago until I realized how much harm and evil is being done to this day from the standpoint of racism and white supremacy. In other words, white people are better than the rest. I remember first being shown that by my friends 6 years ago and feeling kind of guilty that I was white. But honestly, because of God coming through and forgiving me and changing me, I began to take steps towards being a white person that actually actively stood against racism in all forms, even in little ways. And I'm only that way because when I was indifferent towards people of color that were suffering, God didn't give up on me. And so if you feel that way today, in light of what's going on, just know A, you're not alone, and B, you can change. Like, God forgives you, He loves you, and He can change you from the inside out to being a more loving, compassionate person. He did it for me, and He can do it for you. If you have questions about just what it means to be a white person in our world today, feel free to message me. I'd love to chat about it. I promise I'm not going to make you feel guilty or wrong. I just want to talk. I'd love to hear your story and your thoughts with everything going on right now. But I say that story because that's an example, right? Just like the woman in the story, our mistakes in life don't have to erase the potential for a positive effect. Jesus has always been about new starts and do-overs. Maybe you're sitting here today and you feel like you relate to this story because you've made some decisions you regret, or just assume that your bad decisions meant that you weren't the kind of person that God would use. Or maybe you feel like you've made bad decisions that have caused you to lose your influence with the people around you. You know, like, sure, God forgives, but people still talk, right? Can you even change that? Either way, here are a few steps you can take to change directions in life. The first one is just reflect. Ask yourself, what small steps or big decisions are leading me to have a negative effect on others? I mean, is it how you speak to people? Are you too harsh or sarcastic in your responses? Maybe you're getting drunk or doing various kinds of drugs, making impulsive decisions that you know are borderline reckless. Maybe you're lying to people who are closest to you, or you're pretending to be someone you're not. Whatever it is, take some time right now and think honestly about what might be causing the you effect to be not so good. And the second thing is confess. If there are choices that have led you to have a negative effect on others, talk to God about it. Invite Him into your mess. He loves you, He forgives you, He wants to be there with you. Just like the woman at the dinner party, we can approach Jesus no matter what people think or say about us. He isn't surprised by what we've done. He's not waiting to be mad at you. God is quick to forgive and accept you just as you are. People made in His image with incredible potential in life. You may want to even talk about some of these thoughts with a small group leader. You might want to talk to an adult about decisions you make in life. Things you're thinking about right now that you might feel guilty or embarrassed to talk about with people. But I promise you that talking about it with a trusted adult will only be helpful in you finding healing in God moving forward. And I can tell you, there are a lot of small group leaders that you know already here at church that love you, that will not see you differently, even if you share something with them that is kind of hard. Your leaders want to be a safe place for you where you could say anything and help you figure out what to do next in life. Rebuilding trust with people can take time and intentionality, and your leaders want to be there to help you in times like that. And the last thing is just identify a specific step you can take this week to rebuild trust with people after you may have had a negative effect on them. mean, maybe it's apologizing to someone you have mistreated or lied to. Maybe it's changing the way you speak to people. Maybe it's asking someone to check in with you and remind you about the positive decisions you want to change in life. As you guys sign off this platform today, just remember this. Because of Jesus, we can change the effect we have on others. Lost influence doesn't have to be lost forever. You have the ability to take a step in a different direction in life. You do. Maybe you know someone who's made some choices that disappointed you or made you think of them differently. If that's true, know because of Jesus, they can have a new start too. And you could be a part of reminding them that they're welcome, loved, and accepted at a place like the Tank. The truth is this, we all can take our you effect from positive to negative, and we all need a fresh start sometimes. And when that happens, when we're tempted to give up, walk away, or assume the story is over, just know that Jesus makes it so clear. Nobody gets to say the story is over but him. And when we take a step towards Jesus, he invites us to get up instead of give up and to change the you effect one step at a time. And at this time, we're going to put a couple questions on the screen. We encourage you guys to think through them and interact in the comments after the questions. And we also have some leaders in the chat that would love to talk about those questions with you as well. All right, go for it. Thank you guys for joining us for the Tank today. We hope this gave you some extra hope and encouragement going into this next week. Just know we're here for you. Matt, myself, the leaders here at church, and we love you and we see the best in you. So know we're always here to talk and we're always here to help whenever you need it. So with that, we love you guys. Have a good day. Peace.